Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we're super happy to have you here. And if you've been listening and enjoying for a while, I would be super grateful if you would please take a moment to give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's one of the best and simplest ways to pay it forward and help others find the show so that they too can tap into the powerful perspectives and positive vibrations we are collectively emanating. The other unique and magical way to share this show is by sending any friends you think would benefit from listening to this podcast our Game with the Universe link at positivehead.com/game. Also listed in the show notes, which will serve them up a quote-unquote random episode when they click it. Just instruct them before clicking the link to close their eyes for a moment and sincerely ask the universe to cue up the episode that contains the insight and perspectives that they most need to hear at this point in their life journey, and then click to listen to whatever episode is synchronistically served up to them. I have heard time and time again from people about the incredible results they received playing the game. So just tell your friends magical results are guaranteed or their karma back. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have Dr. Gladys McGarey here with me on the show. Gladys is the co-founder of the American Holistic Medical Association, and at 102 years young, she has truly walked the talk when it comes to exemplifying the power of taking a holistic approach to life while pioneering a new way of thinking about disease and health that has transformed the way we imagine healthcare and self-care around the world. Hello, Gladys. Welcome to the show, my friend.
I'm happy to be here.
This is, I've been looking forward to this for some time. And, so much I want to talk to you about. I'm going to start with my cliche opening question. And it is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
To live a life that gives hope and love to other people.
That's a good passion. Well, if you would take a moment to, I think here at the beginning, if you would take some time to share whatever feels relevant about your backstory that kind of led you on this unique journey that you've been on.
Well, I was born in India. My mother, as a matter of fact, went into labor with me at the Taj Mahal.
Really? Wow.
I think she was kind of a drama queen. But so I grew up in North India. My parents were both physicians. They were both osteopaths. And my mother was one of the few women in the field of medicine at the time. But there she was with my dad, and they went out to India as medical missionaries with the Reformed Presbyterian Church. And we lived the first part of my life, which I felt was absolutely idyllic, in tents out in the jungles of North India, because my parents took their medical work back to parts of India where people were forgotten almost. They were the poor and the forgotten.
Wow.
And to me, it was absolutely wonderful. I've had freedom to move and go and do things that I wanted to, and it was a great way to spend the first 6 years of my life.
Wow. That's really interesting because, they say the first 6 years are the most formidable, right? And those are when you really kind of program the subconscious. So looking now, at your long and fruitful life, what an interesting first 6 years to sort of build the foundation.
Well, I knew when I was 2 that I was a doctor. It wasn't that I was going to be. I was, and I let everybody know that because my any dolls that I had would develop problems that needed to be fixed. So my sister wouldn't let me touch hers.
Wow. Wow, that's funny. So at 6 you moved back to the States?
No.
No?
At 6, I started school.
Mhm.
And I started at Woodstock School, which is a school that was started 200 years prior to, well, I was born in 1920, so this is 1926 that I started school. And it was mainly for the children of missionary parents, but Gandhi's nieces came, and
Wow.
I had a prince that was in the class. It was a English school, teaching English in the Himalayas,
Oh, right.
and so it was a really good school. However, for me, it was very, very hard because when I started trying to read, I couldn't. The letters were all over the page. The numbers, if I started to try to add or something, didn't hold still. And I had a teacher who just didn't, she really decided that I was the class dummy. And so that whole year, I was the one that she picked on
Mm.
because I was so stupid
Aw.
that I couldn't read. And then I had to repeat first grade in her class.
Wow.
So for 2 years, I was the class dummy.
Wow.
And so I figured out how I could fight and try to keep myself where I thought I was supposed to be when I was there, but that wasn't working so well. And when I told other people said, would ask me what I was going to be when I grew up, and I said a doctor, and then they'd say, no, you can't be, you have to be a nurse or something. Then I'd fight them, and then
Wow.
there'd be that whole thing. But what I did have was a family that understood me, and an ayah. Now, an ayah is like a surrogate mother,
Mm.
because my mother was so busy doing the work that she was doing that she needed someone to take care of the babies and the children. And our ayah was that person.
Mm.
So if I was, not if, as I was going through day by day battles at school, I had the absolute vision that I knew I could work towards, and that was our Aya would be sitting at the top of the hill in our bungalow waiting for me. And as she saw my head coming up over the edge of the hill, she would stretch out her arm with the shawl on it, and she'd say, Idarao, come here.
Mm.
And I would go there and she'd tuck me in under her arm, and I'd stay there until my world came back into shape.
Mm.
So it was a wonderful way of actually allowing myself to deal with what I had to deal with in school. But I had this healing, wonderful mother, and actually Aya too. So there were, it was something that I was able to maintain my vision of who I was.
Wow.
Because it was anchored in a home that understood what I was doing,
Right.
no matter what the school was doing.
Wow. What a blessing that you had that sort of
Oh,
support.
there's a wonderful, you want a story?
We absolutely love stories, and I got to think you have a lot of good ones. So yes, please.
Okay. So when I started third grade, I had a teacher that did not think I was stupid. She saw something in me that the other one had not. So she appointed me class governor,
Wow.
which meant that maybe I couldn't do the reading, but I could organize games or do something like that. So I was the class governor. And this one time, we as a class were presenting a play called The Frog Jumped Over the Pool to the whole student body. And my job was to be the frog. And I was very happy about that. My mother made me a green frog outfit, and I came walking out onto the platform very confidently. But as I looked into the crowd, I saw my two older brothers in the front row, and that just threw me off my stride enough that instead of jumping over the pool, I landed in it. And so here I was, I guess I was 8 years old, standing in that pool. My suit was fading, the green was fading out. I'm in tears. I can't get out of the pool. I can't move. I'm devastated because I thought I'd lost the whole thing. But the audience is absolutely in stitches laughing. They just thought it was the greatest thing. So when we got home that night, we're sitting around the table, and my brothers are telling my mother what a great thing it was and how they were laughing and all this. And she didn't say a word until they were finished. And finally she said, "All right, boys, now you've had your fun. What can we do for Gladys if she ever gets into this kind of situation in the future, that she would be able to have people laugh with her, not at her?" And so I don't know what the family did at that point, but somehow they gave me the not just the permission, but the ability to do that, which has stood me in good stead for 100 years. I mean, because there are times when I trip and I fall, and you know, and it can be a disaster, but I can work that around so that it unites the audience before we even get started. So I've got story after story about that, and I'm not going to get into it. But it's what my mother was able to do was right in line what the ayah was able to do. The two of those amazing women, the ayah was totally illiterate. She couldn't, she didn't even think about reading or writing. She was, but they had the love that helped me not only mature and grow into what I needed to be, but to salvage the damage that was being done by the outside world. And so for me, that's what community does. That's what family does.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. It's, you know, what I think of is this idea, if you stumble, make it a part of your dance. and it sounds like you really were learning that lesson at a young age, probably to prepare you for all of the unique and epic paths that you were to traverse. I mean, you know, when you started, women weren't even allowed to be doctors, correct?
No.
I mean,
no.
What a fascinating journey to start at, 2 years old. No, I'm going to be a doctor, and you did it.
Yeah. Well, my mother had done it. You see, wasn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
To have a community where you knew that you could grow up in and do the things that your heart was telling you needed to do.
Yeah. Amazing. And now I know you've written a book, The Well-Lived Life, that really goes over, your secrets to health and happiness at every age. I mean, it must be the question you get bombarded with. You probably got so tired of being bombarded with, what is the secret, to to being here as a centenarian, and still going strong, obviously here. So, what do you tell people when they ask you, that very big question?
Well, the secret is keeping your eye on life as it moves, which it needs to move, and love, which is a motivating factor.
Mm-hmm.
To me, life is like a seed that has a shell around it,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be in the pyramids for 5,000 years with all the energy of the whole universe within that shell, but it can't do anything until love, which is watering and taking care of that seed, allows the shell to crack
Mm.
and life moves in with love.
Mm.
So life and love are like
Synonymous.
sperm and an ovum.
Yeah.
They are a unit.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can work our life around love or love within our life or whatever, and understand that in medicine, love is the greatest healer,
Mm-hmm.
then it's that's an answer that is eternal.
Yeah. Right. Right. I fully agree. One of my favorite quotes is "Love is the answer." Now,
Yeah.
what was the question?
Yeah.
And you certainly have figured that out well before I have. And so, yeah, let's if you would kind of take us through the journey of your holistic approach, and obviously when you were pioneering the American Holistic Medical Association, what was that, 60 years or so ago?
Oh, well, we actually formed uh, uh, in 57,
Wow.
53,
Wow.
or something like that. I mean, a decade's telescope for me, so
Yeah.
I get them all mixed up.
Right.
But no, when see, I went to medical school just as World War II started. I started in September and the war started in December.
Wow.
But I was at Women's Medical College in Philadelphia, which was the only medical school for women in the country.
Wow.
There were other medical schools who had an occasional woman, but otherwise there was no other place. But I happened to be able to get into that school, and their theme was that, okay, you women are in this school, but when you get out in the world, it's going to be harder for you than it is for any of the men.
Sure.
So we're going to make it really tough for you. And so we started with 50 students and only ended up with 25.
Wow.
But so, and for me, it was, even that was difficult because the whole theme during the war, of course, everything was to kill and fight and
Yeah.
get rid of pain and get rid of diseases. And that's what medicine, allopathic medicine, and other forms of medicine too, has still found to be its core reason for being, is killing and getting rid of disease and pain. And that's not what I saw my parents doing, and that's not what I saw uh, in in fact, in medical school. I kept questioning until the dean sent me to the psychiatrist 2 times
Wow.
because she didn't think I had the caliber to do this. So, because I was questioning what the very essence of what it was that I was working towards. And so, anyway, when when I did get out of medical school, and I started an internship in Deaconess Hospital in Cincinnati, which had never had a woman doctor before.
Wow.
And so when I got there for my night, when I was going to be on call all night, they had no place for me to stay. So I got the X-ray table with a blanket and a pillow, and the rest of my time there, that was my home
Wow.
until another woman doctor came in. But it was and so therein lies another whole story. But it was that kind of, even within the world of medicine where we were accepted, we weren't accepted.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And so not only going down the path of becoming a doctor, but then you sort of you're going off the trail again by saying taking this holistic approach to medicine. Was that from the beginning for you, or were you first starting to kind of go the well-worn path of this is what a doctor does? You try and give them meds and keep them on meds, and where did that sort of separation happen for you?
Well, after I finished my internship at Deacon's Hospital, Bill McGarey and I we'd met and we'd gotten married and had a baby and then two babies. And we wanted to have six, so we got us started.
Wow.
But we started our practice in a little uh, waterfront town in Ohio called Wellsville, right on the banks of the Ohio River, and it was where Bill grew up. And for the first 2 years, people just really did not want to accept me as a physician.
Wow.
I remember one woman, she was in her mid 70s. I got a house call, and I went to see her, and she obviously had an appendicitis. And I said to her, this is what it is, and I'll call the hospital and set up the surgical procedures, and we'll take care of it. And she started off, and she lit into me, and she said, "You stupid woman, go home to your babies and let me,"
Gosh.
So she gave me this whole spiel. And
Wow.
so I had to call my husband and say, "Bill, come up here." He came up, did the same thing that I had said to her, got her in the hospital and got her appendix out. But for 2 years, that was, they actually didn't know what to do with me.
Right.
They didn't think I had the capacity or whatever. But then after a while, they realized that, and we were there for 9 years. And by the time we left, Bill had been called back into the service, and so I was really about the only person there who could make house calls and do things. So then I was so
in high demand.
Oh my, I couldn't get away from the patients.
Yeah.
They'd approach me all over the place. And even when my kids got the mumps and I got the mumps, and I ended up with mumps and nephritis in the hospital, and I was really sick. They'd either come up the back stairs and sneak into my room to ask me a question, or yell outside, yell out the window.
Wow.
Until my friends who were colleagues there took me to their home and connected the IV to their curtain rod so that I could have some peace. But it was either one extreme or the other.
Wow.
It was just, but it was you had to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've obviously been a trailblazer, and like I said, and when we started, I love you've truly walked the talk. Here you are at 102 years old, 102 years young. Sorry, and you have you're doing interviews and sound sharp as ever. And I know you share these in your book, The Well-Lived Life. You share the six secrets that you've uncovered on this journey. Would you touch on those for us?
Yeah, along with that, there's another 5 that I think are really important, which I'd like to tell you.
Sure, please.
I call them the 5 L's. It's because I started talking about life and love at the first. The first L in my sort of a foundation for what I conjure up as life and my path in life. The first L is life.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not alive, nothing else counts.
Right.
And the second L is love. If you can't activate life, nothing else counts.
Yeah.
So those two, I talked about it. You know, love activates life.
Yeah.
And when it gets activated, then life goes on. The third L is laughter.
Mm.
Laughter without love is cruel.
Mm.
It's mean. It's cold.
Mm.
But laughter with love is happiness and joy.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth one is labor.
Mm.
Labor without love is, oh man,
Yeah.
I got to go back to work.
Yeah.
Too many diapers,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's just too hard. But labor with love is bliss. It's why you do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
It's why I do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's why painters paint and singers sing.
Yeah.
It's but the thing that gives us juice,
Mm-hmm.
the very essence of our soul
Mm-hmm.
is this awareness that the life force is there, and boy, is it juicy.
Mm-hmm.
And the fifth is listening.
Mm-hmm.
Listening without love is empty sound.
Mm.
It's a clanging bell, but listening with love is understanding.
Yeah.
So if we can put these 5 L's, incorporate them into our lives, it gives, what it's done for me has been to give me sort of not just a starting point, but a solid foundation on which to build a philosophy and a life.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. I love the L's, and then I know in the book you talk about understanding that you are here for a reason, and it's something that we talk a lot about on this show. It's like we all purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you speak to that?
Yeah. Well, I think each one of us are here for a special purpose that no one else can fill.
Agreed.
There's no one else going to be in my skin.
Yep.
No one else can be in your skin. You have to do what you do, and I have to do. I look at it as a huge jigsaw puzzle, and each one of us are our own special piece. And no other piece fits that. I've tried pounding a piece in, and it won't work. We each have our own place, and it is always contacting others. It's not doing without the other people, not doing without our community. So we all have our purpose, and it's really I think it's our challenge to find within ourselves what that purpose is. And although we can look for it in relationship to what our family does, or there are families that are doctors, there's families that are teachers, and so on. That's all part of it. But finding what our own special place is within that sets our purpose. And so that it's that important aspect of our life that gets us started. And once we find that purpose, then we can move on and move into community and into the fourth one, which is everything in life is a teacher. Yeah. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's a illness, then what's that illness what's my body trying to teach me as I live through this illness? Yeah. It's not a matter of, in my way of looking, of getting rid of that illness. It's a matter of looking at it and saying, all right, what is it that I'm supposed to learn? Yeah. There are a lot of people. I have many patients who have illnesses that they'll never get rid of. Yeah. but they haven't stopped living.
Yeah.
Look at Franklin Roosevelt. I mean, he became president with post polio syndrome, which is a nasty thing. And I love working with people who have chronic illnesses because I am inspired by their ability to take the illness where it is and incorporate their lives
Yeah.
and the illness in a way that is that it may not heal the disease, but it heals the person.
Right. Right.
And there's a difference.
Mm. Yeah, I love that perspective, and I fully agree. It's something that we talk about all the time. Life is happening for you, not to you, and it's all
Yeah,
showing you something that you need to learn. And it's all, you know, your challenges are blessings. There's a silver lining there. It's a gift in disguise in some way, shape, or form.
yeah,
And another thing that I often say that I love that you reference is the puzzle sort of metaphor. I always say we're like a giant, I feel like we're a giant puzzle putting itself back together. And we talk a
yeah.
lot on the show about sort of spiritual concepts and the oneness of all things.
That's right. Yeah,
And if that is indeed the case, then the consciousness that animates my form is the consciousness that animates your form. The separation between us is illusory in nature, and you're a piece of the grander puzzle, and so am I. And the sum is going to be greater than the equal parts as we learn how to
right,
come into community, unifying and
right.
remembering this truth, redash membering, coming back together. It leads to the best possible outcome for all. um yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And the second L is that life has to
Yeah.
move. If we get stuck someplace and we think that that's it, then it is. We
Yeah.
die.
Right.
Life dies if it doesn't
Yeah.
move. So we have to be aware of the fact that if we're going to keep on living, our mind and our spirit has to keep on reaching for what I call our true humanity,
Mm.
that inner aspect of our being
Mm-hmm.
that knows who we are and why we are
Mm-hmm.
who we are. And as we keep looking for that, which is looking for the light, looking for not not getting stuck, well, not getting stuck in the darkness,
Right.
but reaching past the darkness into the light, because it's always there if you can look for it. If you don't look for it, you never see it.
Right.
But if you start looking for it, it may be just a
Yeah.
spark that gives you an idea that, oh yes, that could be.
Yeah.
And then you start following it. I kind of like to think of our work sort of like I have a flashlight that I've accepted and realize helps me along my path. But there are times when I'm walking along my path and I can see someone else who has a flashlight, but maybe their light is their battery is a little dim, or
Mm.
the light isn't very. If I add just a little bit of my light to their light, it gives them the idea and the ability to go a step farther
Right.
and another step farther.
Right.
It's that uh, uh, reality that we're not
Yeah.
alone, which is another one of the secrets.
Mm.
We're all in this together.
Right.
It's part of the truly evolving human being, which can get stuck anytime, any place, and not be able to live its life, uh, their life out in the fullness, or move. And I don't like to say, people say, well, just get over it. Well, you don't just get over
Yeah.
it. If you can live through
Yeah.
it, you have learned the lesson that specific
Yep.
whatever is teaching you,
Right.
which your own being has brought to your
Yeah.
consciousness.
Yeah. I fully agree. Like, um, running away from it isn't the answer, right? Facing it and
No,
moving
no.
through it and then integrating whatever the lesson is, you become more in that process, I believe.
Right. Or spending all of your time to get rid of it and then find that you're not going to get rid of it and you give up.
Yeah.
So uh, it's the lesson that we need to lead. No, don't need that we're being offered to learn from.
Yeah. Right. Right. So I'm curious from a physical health standpoint. There's a lot. You've probably seen the you've definitely seen the full gamut of food pyramids and charts, and here's what we should do and here's what we shouldn't, and this is bad and that is, even in my life I've seen stuff come back around. Now it's like, you know
Yeah.
people saying, well, they told us that meat and eggs and cheese is bad, and this guy's over here saying that's actually the best thing you can have, and 10 years ago Lucky Charms was the best thing you could have. So I'm curious what your philosophy is, and yeah, just diet perspective from you would be wonderful to hear.
It's what works for you.
Mm,
It's what works for
mm,
you. My 6 children, one of my sons absolutely can't eat garlic.
mm.
I mean, he really gets bellyache.
Wow.
But the others like garlic. One of my sons told me when he was about 4 that eggs gave him a headache in his stomach. Well, we find what works for us. So I don't tell anybody what they should eat. I tell them, find out what you should eat. Find out what your body says to you. This is good for me. Like, chocolate is really good for me.
Yeah, me too. I'm into chocolate. I'm with you on that.
Yeah. But it's not, I've had this question so many times.
Yeah.
From my children on up, it's what, how do you feel after you've eaten it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not that the food is good or bad. I grew up with Indian food and hot Indian food, and I like hot Indian food.
Me too.
But how many people like hot Indian food?
Some cannot bear it. Yeah. That makes great sense. And I think in a world that there's so many arguments, and it's sort of like, I love your answer because it's really goes along with my fundamental belief that there is no black and white sort of. Life is
No.
gray, right? And
Right,
find your own
right.
unique flow through it.
Because we are looking at life through our own eyes. No one else is doing it.
That's right.
Through our eyes and our own noses. What we smell, what we taste, the senses that we have with our body is our own.
Yeah.
It's like if you try to tell a man who was born blind what the color green is, they can't begin to understand. So if you have a situation where you're working with somebody who's never really experienced love, how do you explain to them what love is? Right. All the songs that have been written, all the things that have been painted, everything that's been done on this earth to try and express what that particular person sees as love is their expression of love. Yeah. But until we experience it ourselves, how do you tell somebody? Yeah. The native, my my third secret is love is great healer.
Mm.
The Native Americans have always known this.
Mm-hmm.
They've always known that that's the greatest healing power. You can do a simple act of kindness for somebody with a great deal of love and heal maybe some damage that was done years ago and help heal it. I mean, you never know what you're going to be able to heal if you can love somebody past a stuck place where they've been struggling to get past.
Mm-hmm.
It's that ability to reach to, because we're not alone in this world. We're all here together, and Mother Earth is here with us too. We to try and forget that I have this idea that when God created us, he said to humans, he said, okay, now I've given you free will, and you now have dominion over the earth. And we, in our arrogance, decided that that meant dominance.
Mm.
So we have taken over the running of the earth and done every kind of, well, I'm not even going to go there, but we've done things to it
Things
that,
not to be
that
proud
have
of.
been painful and hard.
Mm-hmm.
When what dominion means is taking care of.
Right.
God gave us the care
Yeah.
of the earth. And look at what we've done.
Yeah.
So I think it's a matter reclaiming what our very inner core is, which says, I have free will and I have choice, and I can really do something that will help other people by doing something that helps me,
Yeah.
which, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And, it brings up a question for me. Obviously, you've seen a lot in your lifetime, come and go and such big changes. You've seen the computer come into, you know,
Yeah.
change the idea that we could do what we're doing here now
Is amazing.
when you were 20 years old was probably like,
Awesome.
awesome. So I'm curious, did you ever, did you give a lot of thought to, what you would see in your lifetime in regards to some of the developments in technology and so forth? And even social, changes, and so forth.
No, really, I didn't give that much thought. I was too busy just living in the moment.
Yeah. Mm.
And I think that's important because, when we started the American Holistic Medical Association, you can't believe the names we would call.
Yeah.
Because it was so considered wackadoodle,
Yeah, right.
It just was so but we were saying, it's like my eldest son is a retired orthopedic surgeon, and he came through Phoenix, and he's ready to go into practice in Del Rio, Texas. And he says, "Mom, I'm real scared." He said, "I'm going to go into the world. I'm going to have people's lives in my hands." He says, "I don't know if I can handle that."
Mm.
And I said, "Well, Carl, if you think you're the one that does the healing, you have a right to be scared.
Yeah.
But if you can understand that you've been trained to do this orthopedic surgery, which is awesome. I mean, if you have a broken leg, you want a good orthopod to help set your leg,
Yeah.
This isn't something that is trivial. It's important in the field of healing. But then after you've done your job, you support the patient as they do their own healing.
Right.
Because within each patient is that physician, which I call my colleague.
Mm.
My job is to do my job, whether it's allopathic, osteopathic, chiropractic, no matter what it is. If I'm doing my job, to the best of my ability, then I respect the physician within each patient as they pick up the whatever and go within themselves to find out how they can take what I've given them and are probably continuing to give them to do their own healing. And when they accept that, we have what I'm calling living medicine.
Yeah.
And I have the most amazing people that I have worked with through the years who have lived living medicine.
Yeah.
One woman just died about 3 months ago. And I'd worked with her for 50 years at least. So from the time she was 18 months old, she lived with 1/4 of one kidney.
Wow.
And how she did that, none of us have ever known. All we knew was that we would say, we'd give her our take on what was going on within her body, and then she would work with it and deal with it and find her solution and go on. She lived to be 79.
Wow.
Which is awesome.
Wow.
I mean, none of us, I don't know any one of my colleagues who ever could figure out how she did what she did.
Right.
And there are other people like that are an inspiration to me to realize how awesome this whole process of loving yourself enough to trust yourself that you can say, okay, to a doctor or somebody else, that's not going to work for me.
Yeah. What a powerful piece of wisdom and perspective to share as someone, who's been a doctor so many years to share, look, you are the healer. You ultimately, what you say and what you believe is probably the most important thing. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. If you know that something that you're going to eat is going to give you a bellyache, it's going to give you a bellyache. And it might be the best thing in the world from the doctor's point of view for you to take. But if if your gut says no, then stand up and say, no, I can't do that.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. Very, very powerful advice, I would say. And it's sort of miraculous when you look at placebo effect. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Dr. Bruce Lipton, who wrote The Biology of
Oh,
Belief.
yes.
And
Yeah.
it's so empowering to
Absolutely.
understand that, like you said, she had 1/4 of a kidney. You have no idea, or Wayne Dyer said it well. It's like, I'm realistic, I expect miracles. And
Yeah.
really, that's what I'm hearing when you talk, when you're talking about this stuff. It's like, this is bigger than any of us. All you can do as a physician is sort of your best, take your best stab at guiding and inspiring and offering whatever you feel and see, and then, allow them to take it from there, and then they sort of surrender it from there, and something beyond us all determines.
Right, right, right. And I like working with people's dreams.
Yeah.
I find them to be, they've been very helpful in my life in guiding what I've done and so on. But my patients too, I ask them about their dreams. And very often they say, well, I don't have a dream. And, but when they start talking about it, they outline for themselves what it is that they've been trying to say.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, one of the things, Gladys, I'd love to hear from you. I love, and the listeners love to hear stories of synchronicity or serendipity or positive paranormal stories. And so I'm curious if you have something fun up your sleeve.
Well, let me tell you about Evelyn Daly. She's she's moved to Mexico, but she lived in Scottsdale for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
About 15 years ago, she woke up one morning and had her cup of lemon and more hot water. And immediately, as she took the first sips, her esophagus split and she began bleeding.
Whoa.
So she called the ER, called paramedics, and they came and they took her into the hospital, and the surgeons repaired the defect and gave her transfusions and all of that, and she was in the hospital, and they said, now we need to really repair this tissue. And she said, no. She said, because I'd been working with her for a while, she knew she had power within her to do some things. So she said, no, I'm going to heal that myself.
Mm.
And they said, you can't heal that. And she said, oh, yeah. She said, yes, I can. And she said, you keep me alive while I'm here in the hospital and let me do my work.
Ooh. Yeah.
And that's what she did. They finally gave her ice cubes that she could swallow and then some light food and so on. She was discharged from the hospital. She's still alive. She's in her late 70s and she's doing wonderfully. And the interesting thing is that this was a familial problem. She had a cousin and an aunt who both had this defect.
Wow.
Both of them had the same thing happen. They had the esophagus, and they'd been surgically repaired, and they both died.
Wow.
She's still alive.
Wow.
It's because she accepted the power that she knew and she still knows she has.
Yeah.
And, I'm so pleased with the whole work that's going on with stem cells because I think that we're being given an opportunity to take these living beings, which are stem cells, into our body, and those stem cells know where to go where the body is having troubles.
Yeah.
I've had 2 infusions of stem cells. I'm very pleased with that. I can't tell you what they have done for me, but I'm still here.
Yeah.
How do you watch as a child is growing? You watch a child, and all of a sudden they've grown 3 inches, and you think, when did that happen? Life doesn't go in leaps and bounds usually. It's cell by cell. And if we can understand that not only do we have the stem cells within our own body, which know what can be done, but we can communicate with those stem cells and to ask them to go to the places that are needed and work with them so that our body, and the physician within us knows what's going on. It's awesome.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you've referenced, you refer to it as the physician within us, and that we can have a more synergistic, symbiotic relationship with, our thinking consciousness, what we call our really who and what I am is made up of smaller entities and beings that have their own level of consciousness and communication and everything. And getting more integrated with all parts of self is really what you're talking about, right?
Right.
Yeah. Very, very inspiring. This has been such a wonderful conversation. And, I suppose one other question before, as we wind down here, that comes up for me is I'm curious because we talk a lot about, spiritual concepts on the show and the idea, that we're eternal beings. From my perspective, I don't believe that you were created 102 years ago. I believe you incarnated in the physical dimension 102 years ago, and that, we're in eternity now. And so I'm just curious how God, faith, spirituality, all of that has played into this for you?
It's breath of my breath.
Mm.
Growing up with parents who were missionaries, and I learned to sing hymns in Hindustani and in English,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of have a reel of tape that goes through my head that has these hymns going all the time.
Oh,
But the people that in my life who have passed on to the other realm are not gone to me.
right.
They're part of what I call my memory lane.
Yeah.
And they're as alive in that memory lane as they were when they were living in San Francisco or
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland or someplace else. I mean, I could communicate with them by phone, and that was wonderful. Now, I see them in my dreams, but I also can conjure them up. If I'm having a night where I'm not sleeping, I walk down memory lane, and boy, do I have fun with the people and the loved ones that I have moved on, and the things that we did together and so on. It's not gone.
Mm-hmm.
It's there for me to
Mm.
reconnect with them, but to reactivate my own juice so that I can keep using it.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Yeah. Such an inspiration. Well, what for those who would like to, you know, stay in touch with you or reach out or follow whatever you do next over the next 20 years,
All right.
what's the best way for them to connect with you?
GladysMcGarey.com.
Got it. Got it. We'll put a link in the show notes as well for you guys. And well, Gladys, this has been such an inspiration.
Thank you.
And well, one other thing, I keep having like these. Oh, hold on, I wanted to ask her this. What is your thoughts about longevity and how it looks? You know, looking at all the medicine now, and we hear a lot of talk that we're on the brink of sort of uh, overcoming aging and death. Aside from accidental sort of things, I'm curious what you think about that piece as well, and this idea that we can reach escape velocity, and
Well,
uh,
I'm interested in that, but I'm not going to spend any time with it. I'm
mhm,
too busy doing what I'm doing moment by moment and living in the
mhm,
moment. I
well,
really had no idea that I'd be 102.
yeah,
I
right,
mean, so yeah, I'm delighted, but I didn't sit down and say I'm going to be 102. I
right,
still have a 10-year plan, stuff that I need to do
mhm,
that needs to be, from my perspective, I still want to do, but
mhm,
it's not written on the calendar.
yeah, right, and what you're saying is the present is called the present because it is the ultimate
Yeah,
gift, right? And the more we bring
right.
our attention to that gift, the more our life can be fully lived as I believe it is most intended. And so,
Well, like what we're doing right now.
yeah, right.
You know, how is such a thing possible in my life? It's impossible. Talk about miracles. Here, where are you,
Yeah,
incidentally?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Well, there you go.
Yep,
And yet we've been able to, what is it, about an hour, we've been able to talk this way and
yep.
get to know each other a little bit and
Hmm.
all that. Awesome.
It really is. It's such a pleasure and such an honor to have been able to connect with you in this
Thank you.
hour. And I know everyone out there is feeling uplifted and inspired who has tuned in. And I do have one final question for you, and it is my cliche closer. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Gladys McGarey?
Love.
Mm. Love is the
Love.
answer now. What was the question?
Yeah.
Gladys, you are such a beautiful reflection and such an inspiration.
Thank
I'll
you.
say it one more time, and thank you for blazing the trails that you've blazed, and yeah, just
And thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this.
mm. Well, together, the sum is greater than the equal parts, as we've said.
Absolutely.
And I
Absolutely.
look forward to the next time that we get to co-create and weave together. And until then, I wish you well and
Thank you. And you
much,
too.
much great health. And all of you out there for tuning in, your beautiful brainwaves and incredible hearts. Until next time, journey well.